actually this is spring 2023. When I started teaching in fall of 1995, when I started, yeah, some of you weren't alive, I know. When I first started teaching in fall of 1995, if someone said, you will be teaching chemistry in spring of 2023, I would have been like, no, that's not going to happen. But it's been a lot of fun. So this is like kind of completing my 28th year of teaching. So hopefully some of the things I've learned along the way, I can impart to you. And I hope that you enjoy this class. This is probably my favorite. Well, I really like A&P, like I'm not gonna lie, because I really like the details. I really enjoy that part, but I'll actually give you a lot of A&P knowledge in this class. I like to try and like make those connections, because then when you go take A&P, then you're like, oh yeah, remember she said this. Or maybe you'll say, oh, Mr. Awadala said that, and I remember, yes, this makes sense. Like maybe we'll have some connections. I keep my fingers crossed all the time that that actually ends up happening. So my name's Holly Carmichael, in case you don't know. I'm teach pretty much chemistry now, because this is sort of a full load just teaching these sections of chemistry. This is just the lecture class. So that sometimes throws people, because when you take a biology class where you took A&P, you just had a 4-credit class and it was 3 hours of lecture, 3 hours of lab. Well, this is just a 3-hour lecture. If you have not signed up for the lab and you're a pre-nursing or a vet tech student, then you need to have the lab. So the lab is Chem 130A. There's an online section of Chem 130A. There's also an on-campus class. So for that, which meets on Wednesday, so if you're in the lab, you're going to come tomorrow. This is all you need from the bookstore for lab, okay? This is just a lab manual. It just comes as a 3-hole punch, so you could just get a little binder or just stick it in the back of your binder for class, doesn't matter. So this costs $10. Okay, so make sure that if you are in the lab with me tomorrow, make sure that you bring your lab manual with you. It's not like excessively expensive, but if you're a dental hygiene student, some dental hygiene programs require the lab and some do not. So you really want to make sure that you double check, like Halifax does not, but Wayne does and Wake does. So there's ones that do, ones that don't. So you would definitely want to check that. And they're pretty much, those are the 3 primary groups of people that are in here. You're either pre-nursing, or you are vet tech, or you are going into dental hygiene at one of the other community colleges, but just taking your core classes here. Okay, and if you have any questions about that or you're not sure, feel free to ask me after class so we can kind of hash that out. I want to make sure if you need to be in the lab that you are in the lab and not like get halfway through the semester and go, I didn't know I was supposed to be in the class. Okay, so just there. All right, so my office is 7239, so it's basically upstairs in the kind of right corner of the building. But I will tell you, I'm usually in there from like 8:30 till 9:30. Okay, so I'm usually in my office in the morning when I get there, but pretty much here's your stuff. But pretty much after that, I'm not in my office. So my suggestion is, so my suggestion is if you have a question, whatever, email me. The email that you see, that hcarmichael@nashcc.edu, that is kind of like my shortest email. Okay, so that's, I check, like I was fielding messages this morning. Usually I check my email when I'm drinking my coffee in the morning. I check it after this class. I check it in the afternoon. I check it before I go to bed. I have online classes, and so on the weekends I'm checking it. So if you send me an email, I will get back to you. Okay, I will try and get back to you within a couple of hours. In my mind, it's better for me to try and answer your questions so you keep going than to wait and wait and wait, and then you're like, I just can't do this, and then you go off and do something else and forget to complete an assignment or something like that. So do feel free to send me an email if you have a question about anything. The office hours. So I am in what we call the STIL. It's the Science and Technology Learning Lab. So it's basically like the Science Tutoring Center. That is upstairs in 7213. So if you were upstairs, it's almost in the middle of the hallway. It's kind of like this little room. It used to have all the computers in it. Well, they've pulled most of the computers out. Now it's just tables. But we have my office hours Monday from 2 to 5, Wednesday from 3 to 4. I do have virtual office hours, which, I mean, I'm available anyways if you needed to talk to me on Thursday as well, but I have that for my online students just because of the numbers of them that I have, okay? So just sort of keep that one in mind. So This class is face-to-face, so you're expected to be here at every class, so it's not like an optional type of thing. The required materials is this text. So this is by Frost Deal. It comes from Pearson. It was last updated in like 2020. But they've continued to make updates. I think you can see it a little better if I turn off the front light. They continue to make updates to it online. They just haven't republished it. You do not have to have the physical textbook. But if you are somebody that really likes a physical textbook, I wanted to show you what it looks like. So it's the one with the pineapple on it, and it's called the 4th edition. So you could go to like Chegg, and you could rent this for like $30 for the semester. They ship it to you, you ship it back. You do have to do like a deposit thing so that, you don't trash it or not send it back. But you can do like a rental from them. You can also purchase a loose leaf version directly from the publisher. And I have a link in Moodle. If you're somebody, I know if you're under 30, the odds are that you've really not had any physical textbooks in a very, very long time. So if you're fine with e-text and everything like that, I will try to give you a couple more pointers about the e-text as we go. So if you're purchasing this out of pocket, one, you have a free week trial, 2-week trial before you actually have to publish it. So there's no reason that you can't log in and go ahead and get started on stuff. So that's not an issue. If you've been to the bookstore, you've gotten like what looks like a card. That's all you got for this class. If you open it up, there's a code inside. So to access this, you'll go to Moodle. So you don't go to the Pearson website. You actually access this through Moodle. So if you go to Chem 130, this is our class. So again, I put a picture of the book so that you could see what it is. Here's the syllabus, what we're actually going through. So if something happens to your pink copy, you've got it right there that you can go back and look at it. The next one is your Mastering Chemistry course assignment link. So this is the link that you'll use to access all the assignments all through Moodle. My suggestion is bookmark this on your computer so that even if Moodle goes down, you can still access it directly, okay? Moodle's been pretty good, right? Pretty good, but there are occasions when there's outages that are beyond any of my control, surely, and IT gets on it pretty well. But if there was an issue and you're like, I can't do this, well, if you have it bookmarked, you can just click it and go directly to it. You don't have to log into Moodle first. So that's my suggestion. And then here's the e-text link, okay? So that is the other one. So if you click this, it'll take you directly to the e-text. And the e-text will allow you then to like navigate through each chapter and basically read and solve problems directly through. Okay? That you won't see this if you pull up Moodle because it's still hidden from you. We are waiting for Kendall Proctor is our peer tutor, so we're waiting for her times when she is available. So in the still, I'm in the still during my office hours. Ms. Williams is in the still. She's another chemistry instructor. She teaches Chem 151, 152. She also teaches organic. And so she's got times, and she can answer any questions that you may have if you needed help with anything. But then Kendall Proctor, she's a student, but she's actually taken Chem 151, 152, and 1 semester of organic. She's in her 2nd semester this semester, and she is really great. She is like, she's like this big, about this tall, but she will like help you figure out whatever, okay? She really enjoys chemistry, so she volunteered to be our tutor, and students have really done well with her. So I think that's another, sometimes people are like, I don't want to go talk to the instructor, okay, because I'm scary. With my boots on and everything, I'm almost 6 feet tall now. Okay, but if you feel better going and seeing Kendall, that's fine too. Like either one, we're trying to kind of coordinate it so that we're sort of staggered on when we're in the still to have as much of the time covered as possible. But those are just optional and no cost to that. It's just free tutoring. It's just free help available. Okay, so maybe it works out like in between some of your classes or something. Okay, so I did want to make sure that I showed you that link. So now there's all of this other stuff. Just make sure you read the syllabus because I'm not going to read it because you can read it. Okay, but second big thing is this is how your grading comes about. So in the almost 28 years of teaching that I've been doing, I have found that when teaching things that have a lot of detail, the more chapters you cover, the more difficult it is for students to be able to like wrap their head around everything. So I have like gradually increase the number of tests and decrease the amount of material per test. So you see that now there's 5, which means that you have a lot of tests in this class, okay? But they're not over a whole bunch of information. The first 2 tests are only over 2 chapters apiece because chapter 1 is all your math basics. So we are going to talk about unit conversions. We are going to talk about significant figures and rounding. We are going to talk about doing calculations and using all of that with exponents. So because that seems to be like a big sticking point, and if you don't get this down in chapter 1, then you're going to miss questions in chapter 3, and then again in chapter 6, and then again in chapter 8, because these chapters really build. So that is why I found chapter 1, chapter 2 is about radiation chemistry. It's like super short, so it's kind of almost like an accessory to chapter 1. So that ends up being like manageable in terms of numbers. 3 and 4 is all about bonding and organic molecules. And so that's like in itself, sometimes trying to think about things that you can't physically see, you know, trying to envision an atom when you're like, I can't see atoms. They're like a kabillion size too small. Okay, so going through that's why I put those down to just 2 chapters apiece. But then we get into 5 and 6. 5 is chemical reactions, a lot of theory. 6, carbohydrates, all about sugars and starches, a lot of theory. So these ones, it's easier to do about 2.5 chapters apiece. Test number 4 is over. There's a lot of math in test 4. It's a take-home exam. Okay, so when we finish covering this information, I will give it to you. You have an entire week to do it. You can even work with other people. I don't care. Okay, the kicker is that it's got to be done. So a lot of students, like, if you this can be kind of a good one, a good buffer, right? But all the questions are going to be based on what you learn in class. There's not going to be anything you're going to see that you're like, we didn't talk about that. But now if you didn't come to class, then maybe we didn't talk about that because you weren't here for that. So my suggestion, really, you've got to make sure that you're in class. And then the last one's chapter is looking at like the tail end of acids and bases, so like pH and buffers, and then looking at proteins and nucleic acids. So again, something that if you've had any other science, any like A and P, then you're gonna be like, oh yeah, we've kind of talked about that. So it's typically not as like foreign and weird and hard to think about. And really, I try to make as much connection to nutrition as possible in these, talking about the biomolecules. Okay, so you have a lot of exams, but I dropped the lowest. Okay, so if you have one bad exam, that does not mean that your grade is shot. Each exam is worth 16%, but I dropped the lowest exam. So if you just something happened and you did really bad on exam 2, that's okay. You can still get an A in the class, okay? But what you got to do is you got to figure out why, okay? What am I not doing, and how do I need to change my time I'm studying, how I'm studying, the focus, the way I'm studying. When you come to take an exam, and I'll give you one of these in the next week, you are allowed a cheat sheet, okay? So I will give this out like a week before the exam. If I give it to you before, then most people just lose them. So I'll just wait and give it to you when we get a little closer to the first exam. You can write anything you want on one side, okay? And you can write tiny. I have seen ones when I'm like, I don't believe you. Do you have a magnifying glass? Like, I have seen some of the tiniest writing on these, but believe it or not, doing all that really helps you learn it, okay? Because it's a lot of, like, it requires a lot of effort to do. So as we're going through information, when you start looking back over notes, you may want to highlight stuff. I probably got to put this on my note card. I probably want to put this on my note card. I'm not sure I can remember this step. Maybe I need to write this on my note card. Kind of like start thinking in your head, I got a 4 inches by 6 inches piece of paper, and I can write whatever I want, but I want it to be useful, right? You don't just want to write random stuff and then be like, I don't even know what this means, right? Okay, so you'll have one for each of those as well. So that is one that sort of an additional thing that I give. The final exam, it says it's cumulative, but I will give you a review sheet. There's 40 questions on the final, and I will give you a review sheet that tells you what the topic of every single question is. Okay, so you can go, question 1 is going to be a balancing equations. Okay, have I learned that? If not, I need to go back and review that. Okay, question 2 is a unit conversion question. Have I learned that? Okay, I got to go back and review that. So you will actually know what the topic of every single question on the final is. Okay, so it's kind of cumulative because it does encompass all of the material, but you know the exact topic. So it's not going to be something that's just a random question from anywhere. Okay, Last thing, 21% of your grade is all on you. 21% of your grade, everybody can get 21%, okay? So you have assignments that you need to do, and these are in the Mastering Chemistry through that link in Moodle. There's a couple of different assignments, and so if we just click the link, so I don't have to click the link because I already have it up. So it won't look like this to you. As soon as you pull it open, it's gonna look, it'll like this. This is kind of a list view, or you can change it so you can toggle between list and calendar. Calendar, I think, is the easiest to see because to me, like calendar, I can see like on the calendar when things are due. So the way that these are listed, they show you when these assignments close, not when they open. They're all open now, okay? So if you look and you actually go from 1 to February, to March, to April, all your assignments are open, okay? But they will close on these dates. So one thing, pre-lectures. So the pre-lectures are all the ones that are highlighted in like a light purple. Pre-lecture questions are meant to take you about 30 minutes. It requires that you may have to go and scroll through the e-text. You may have to do a little bit of reading. Pre-lecture is just to get you to look at the chapter. The problems in the pre-lecture are not difficult, so they are not going to be like heavy math problems. Instead, they're going to be more theory problems that may require that you scan through the chapter to find the answer. But that's my goal. I want you to have an idea of what we're going to talk about when you come into class. Because if you come in and you haven't done any kind of preparation, then I start talking, and you're like, what did she say? I don't know what that word is, right? I haven't seen that term. I haven't heard that. But if you do the pre-lecture, then that gives you a bit of an idea about what the chapter's about. And then hopefully in lecture, we like fill in the gaps. So then you're like, oh, I didn't really understand that very well, but now it's making more sense. So the pre-lectures close when we start the chapter. So you didn't know you needed to do chapter 1 today, clearly, because you haven't been in here. So I will give you until Saturday. Okay, so pre-lecture 1 for chapter 1 pre-lecture will close on Saturday at midnight. So you have between now and then to do it. And you have a free 2-week free trial with Mastering. So even if you don't have your access code yet, you can still go ahead and do them. Okay, you just click the 2-week trial, please, when you go into the register part, and it'll just let you, it starts the timing for it, but it'll allow you to do that. So that's one of the assignments. So you see that there's like, when we start chapter 2, that's like the 24th of January, you need to have the chapter 2 pre-lecture done, okay? So some students, when pre-lectures, like, so once you take exam 1, they will go ahead and do the pre-lectures for exam 2 right away. Like do chapter 3 and chapter 4, just do the pre-lectures so that they don't forget. So there's 2 other things. So one, see the orange. They're funny looking because they've got like this little flamey looking thing, but they highlight them in orange in the calendar. Those are called dynamic study modules. Dynamic study modules are multiple choice questions that cover a topic. They don't cover like an entire chapter. So one of them is like this one. This one is like the Understanding Matter dynamic study module. So it is a set of questions all related to understanding matter. So all about classifying matter, what are the different types of matter, how are pure substances and mixtures different. These are due the Sunday after we cover them in class. So we're actually going to start talking about matter today, but then we will finish that on Thursday and beyond to other stuff. So that is why I want you to do it by Sunday night. So what they have found is when you review things within 48 hours of learning them, it helps it stick in your head better. You start to form more neural pathways so that you can actually remember things. That is why the dynamic study modules are due the Sunday after we cover the topic. But you need to make sure you check your calendar, okay? That's the easiest way, really, is just go to the Mastering link, pull up the assignment page, look at it in that calendar view, and that way you can see what things are due each week so that you don't forget, so that you don't come in and go, oh, I forgot to do that, okay? So that way, check this every couple times a week. Like I'd say, like check it on Mondays, check it on Fridays, so that you like kind of keep track of, okay, I've got this due this weekend, or I've got this due on Tuesday, or I got this due on Thursday. Last one. So the last one is the ones that are in blue. You can see this one here. So these ones are called post-lecture assignments. So this is a set of assignments over everything in that chapter. You have 3 chances to answer each question with no deduction of points if you miss anything. So, if you put something in wrong, it's okay. You can go back and put it in again. This one is sort of designed. I have the questions listed, so it's going to take you about an hour. Okay. My suggestion is once we finish chapter 1, just go ahead and do this. Okay. Don't wait till we finish chapter 2 and it's almost exam time. Just go ahead and finish it once we finish chapter 1. And that's another way of just helping to reinforce or show you that there's some stuff that you need to do, right? That you're like, I didn't really understand that. In fact, if you don't get an 80 or above, it will give you the option of doing this. So this is what they call the adaptive follow-up. This is a set of questions worth 3 extra points that you can do, but these will only be questions about what you missed in the post-lecture. So that's kind of helpful because you don't need questions about stuff you got right. You need to know more questions about what you got wrong. And so that's an option. You don't have to do those adaptive follow-ups, but those may help you figure out the stuff that's still a little bit not clear, stuff that you're not 100% on. This may help you figure that part out. Okay. But if you get more than a 90, I think you just test out of it. It won't even tell you that you need to take it. Okay. Now looking at this grade then, going back here. So the assignments, which includes the dynamic study modules and those post-lecture homeworks, that counts as 16% of your grade. That's an exam grade. So if you have 100 on that, that's like getting 100 on an exam. It counts just as much as an exam. And if you note, I have that you must have an 80% for full credit. So that means at the end of the semester, if your overall average in that category is an 80 or higher, and it can be a 79.5, that would work too. So I round up. 79.5 or higher, I will automatically change it to 100. Okay? So if you miss a couple, it's okay. The key thing is do them, right? If you miss entire chapters, that ends up being a problem, okay? But if you miss 1 or 2 questions on those post-lecture homework assignments, don't stress about it. The dynamic study modules, you just have to finish them. They're multiple choice, and it's just going to keep asking you questions until you've answered enough. Until you've answered enough of them correctly, and it'll say you have successfully completed it, okay? Same thing with the pre-lectures. So the pre-lectures, they're all open now. All 12 chapters are open, but they're going to close when we start covering that material. So you need to get chapter 1 done by Saturday at 11:59 is when I have it set to close. But past that, every chapter, once we start that material, then it will close. Now, if we don't cover that material, so say it closes on Tuesday and I didn't get done the previous chapter, then I'll just extend it so I can go in and alter, but I'll try and give an announcement about that if we haven't covered it. Just make sure you remind me too. If you're like, hey, you didn't start chapter 4 and it's due next time, then I will be like, oh, well, you'll have another couple days for it. Okay? Any questions about the grading? I put everything in Moodle. I post everything in Moodle. We have exams. When you take an exam, you'll almost always take an exam on a Tuesday, just because I don't like to give lecture material and then test you 2 days later. I'd like you to have a weekend to be able to study and get everything done, get your note card ready. So pretty much they're always on Tuesdays. So if you take an exam on Tuesday, I will have them graded and back to you on Thursday. Okay? So that means that I don't have makeup exams. I don't have late exams. There is a little bit of information in here about exams. So they're given according to the schedule. I drop the lowest one. So if you miss an exam without a reason and you can't make it up before that Thursday, then that ends up being your dropped exam. My suggestion is try and do as strongly as you can for exams 1 through 4. Then you don't have to take exam 5. Right? So if you have high 80s, 90s on exams 1 through 4, then exam 5, when you're writing papers and studying for lab practicals and other classes, you wouldn't have this. Okay? So that's really sort of the push. I will give exams back for you to be able to look over them because I feel like you need to learn from them. Okay? You need to look at what you got wrong rather than just seeing a grade. Because if you just see a grade, you're like, I don't know what I got wrong. I just know I got an 80. Okay? So I give you your exams back so that you can review them, but you need to make sure that you turn them back in and not lose them. Okay? It's always been a challenge. All right, so here's more information about mastering, about accessing mastering chemistry, about the pre-lectures and things, when things are due. Pre-lectures always close at 8 a.m. on the day that we start that lecture. The post-lecture homeworks, those will always close at 9 a.m. I think I said 9 a.m. On 9 a.m. On the day of an exam, okay? Dynamic study modules are typically due on Sunday nights, and so those will be due at 11:59 on Sunday. But again, you can do them anytime. That's just when they close. Last day to drop, hopefully nobody has an issue with this, April 21st. By this time, you will have done all 4 of your exams 1 through 3, and that take-home exam, you will already have grades for that. You will have a very good idea of what your grade is going into the last round, and we can really have discussions about that. The only other additional attendance thing that I have is I do have a maximum attendance limit. So if you miss more than 5 classes, then you can't stay in this class. What I have found is if you miss more than 5 classes, then you do not learn enough information to be successful in the class. And so I would rather that you drop this class, but then spend more time on your other classes and bring those grades up. And it sometimes ends up becoming that kind of call. If you have any questions about that at any time, feel free to let me know, okay? But just know that. Last, before we go on to the schedule part, do you see this link? So this Nash Community College resources, I really encourage you this week to look at this link. I've got it on here as well. Here's the other resources link that is in course resources. This link will give you a lot of information about things that are available at Nash Community College, okay? So it gives you information about like our tutoring centers. It gives you information about scholarships. It even gives you information about like gas money. So if you find that like it's really tight, not sure I'm going to have the gas to be able to get from school to work or from home to school, then there's accesses that you can have there. We actually now have a student wellness center, which is actually like, it's run by somebody that is a counselor, a licensed social worker. So somebody that has like experience in dealing with like some of the struggles that many of you may find as you're trying to get through school, okay? So whether it be like just not being supported at home or if it's a financial struggle, all you have to do is ask me to give you a referral. You don't have to tell me anything, okay? You don't have to explain your struggle, like that's not my job. Like I'm pretty good at teaching chemistry, but like I don't know, okay? But I will right then and there write you a referral, so that you can go talk to somebody and maybe you can figure out a way, a plan to like change the situation so that you can continue with school. I want to give you anything and everything that I can to try and help you be successful. And I don't want that to take away from your education if at all possible. So just know that throughout the semester, and any of your instructors would feel exactly the same way, I promise, okay? And it's really like kind of come full circle from the years when I was in school, when it was like, here's your information, blah, 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 blah. Okay, go home and learn it. Okay? We really want you to be successful and give you as much support as possible to get there. All right, so a couple of things that I've done to try and like increase or improve this success aspect. One, you've got kind of like a bigger handout that's on your, as one of the handouts that I gave you, it's like all on white paper. It's 3-hole punched, but it is stapled. So if you look at it, it's this one, okay? So this is all of the PowerPoints we're going to talk about in Chapter 1, okay? So I had them printed, and you can print them front and back, so it uses less pages. So I have like continued to pare down my PowerPoints, trying to get them between 40 and 50, no more than 50 per chapter, just so that I try to limit them. But if you kind of leaf through, you'll notice that there's a lot of like blanks, that there are like questions with no answers. And so that is kind of how I've done my lectures and PowerPoint, so that we kind of work through them together, so that I can show you and demonstrate to you what you're going to do. I have a writable tablet or that I can use and do the, I have the prop, sorry. I have a writable tablet that I can use. And so all of the lectures that I give, this is all recorded. So if you ever want to go back and like, you're like, she explained this, but I can't remember the steps to do that, you can actually go to their YouTube videos. So you can actually click the link, go to that. You can like jump through. You can go, it's just a YouTube video, so you can just go wherever and find the answer if you feel like that's going to help. It really depends on the way that you're, like how you learn. Some students really have to write things down. That's how I was. I'm a mechanical learner. I have to write things down. I'm a big list maker because that way I don't forget things. Well, I have to write it down. And once I write things down in my own words, then things start, like, I can pull them back up. But reading somebody else's material, that doesn't always work for me, okay? Or hearing it. But I had friends in school that had the photographic memories. I don't know if you've ever had a friend like that. Nobody liked them, okay? Because they could literally just, like, look through their notes and then take the exam and ace it because they could, like, see everything. They're visual learners. I know other people are like, I remember you said something. I remember you said it like this, and this helped me remember it. So they're auditory learners. So you're one of those three, and most people use the combination of them. But you really need to figure out, how do I learn? Like, how do I learn best? Do I learn best by writing? In that case, printing these PowerPoints may be like the primary way that you are going to get through this class, by writing things down and being a little more active in learning instead of just sitting. But then there's other students who are like, I can't write stuff down because I can't pay attention and write stuff down at the same time, right? So then they're more of like the sitting and listening type of people. They can remember stuff. But I record these lectures and then post them so that if you are somebody that needs to go back and listen to it again, or needs to be able to see it written down again, like slower, like pause, write this down, pause, write this down kind of thing, totally up to you, but I have those. I will post those in each exam module. So like this class today, I will post the recording of it, and I will post my marked up PowerPoints, which is the PowerPoints that I actually write things on. So I will put both of those up there for you, and I will do that every single class, okay? So that you've got, whether you're an auditory listener, mechanical listener, like however you learn, you've got to figure out like what works best for you, okay? Just being here, like some students can just like get it. Okay, they just get it just being here. And then I was always one, I had to go back and like redo notes. I had to reorganize notes. I had to practice problems that look similar in the book. All of the odd numbered questions in the chapter, the answers are at the end of the chapter. So if you're like, I think I know this, maybe pull up a couple of those odd questions, like chapter 1.3. The answer's at the end of that chapter. So you can kind of check yourself. You should see very similar questions to the stuff that we're going to do as well. And then those mastering assignments will help you figure that out too, because you'll kind of start to see, I don't know what this is. I don't know why I keep getting this significant figure wrong. Okay, so when you get to that, then just know. Okay, if you want to, the PowerPoints are all here. These are all the PowerPoints I will use all semester. And I've been working to update, so most of these are updated this either last fall or this spring. So you can go to the library in the first 10 days of the semester. This is free, okay? And they say it's free. It's really not free. You paid for it, okay? So you had a student activity fee in your tuition. That was to provide paper and ink to the toner over in the library. So you've already paid for printing, okay? So don't be like, oh, it doesn't cost anything if you do it in the first week of the semester. You can just go and click. You don't have to do chapter 1 because I've already given it to you. But you can click 2, 3, 4, 5. Just go all the way through, download all of them, open them, and then click print. When you go to print them, I can just show you the quick way. When you go to print them, you go to File, go down to Print, and you can use the computers in the library to do this. You don't have to have a separate computer or anything. Just go to the library computers, log in, open up Moodle, and go to this Moodle course. So then when you go to Print, see where the settings part of print, so instead of printing 1 slide per page, you can print 3. And if you look, see how it changes it, okay? So if you like, and like I would encourage you to try using those in this beginning part. The first couple of slides is what we're gonna cover today, but just go through taking notes on that directly. Do you feel like that's enough room? You know, some students are like, no, I gotta have all white space around, okay? But there's different options. You could print 3 slides in a page, you could do 6, you could do 4. Like, I just find this is nice because it leaves me these blanks so that I can actually add notes, and you actually have the PowerPoints. I think they're big enough to see, okay? They're big enough to see and see the writings on them, and you can just add stuff to them as you go. Okay, so if you're somebody that needs to be a little more active in your note taking as a way of trying to stay kind of connected and engaged in class, then I really suggest that you go ahead and print those, okay? Then that way you can just put those in a binder. Any questions on any of those? Last page then. Well, not last page, next to the last page. So here's your schedule. So this tells you everything we're going to do in every single class for the entire semester. And I managed to get it all on one page. Okay? So like today, so we're going covering the syllabus, and then we're going to start the very basics about chemistry. We're going to talk about matter. Okay? Then on Thursday, we're going to talk about the periodic table, and we're going to work on balancing equations. Then next Tuesday, we're going to finish up measurements, okay? And then go on and talk about some of the different names, topics, things that we're going to talk about in this class. So that'll finish up, and then we can go on into chapter 2. Okay? But notice in this, and if you look at nothing else on the syllabus, page 2 tells you the grading. This page, page 5, this tells you when things are due. Okay? So like you could fold this and like 3-ring binder it in so that you can actually check things off as you get them done. So it tells you when things are due in mastering chemistry. That's that last column. It also tells you when your exams are. Okay? And those are pretty hard and fast. Like I don't usually change an exam. I might change the amount of material. So basically everything through January 26th is going to be on exam 1. Okay? Sometimes I cover half-life. Sometimes I don't. That's okay. Okay? But that's as far, like, I'm just going to make that the cutoff for that exam.
The first column, is that the...
First column's the dates of class.
Okay.
Okay? Middle column's topic. Last column tells you when you've got those mastering due dates.
Okay.
Okay? And then I kind of added the chapters when we start each one. And you kind of see, like, most of them are split. Chapter 7, sometimes I get gas laws into exam 3, sometimes I don't. Just depends on where we are in lecture. And that's a little more flexible, and I'll just alter the mastering assignments depending on what happens. But you've got the pre-lecture dates on all this. You got those Sunday dynamic study modules. That's what DSM is, dynamic study module. You've got like anytime we have an exam, those post-lecture homeworks are due then. Goes all the way down to the very end. So you will also notice, there's no holidays. Okay? So next Monday is Martin Luther King Day, so there's no class. But that does not affect you because you guys are my Tuesday, Thursday people. Okay? So if you look, Tuesday, Thursday, Tuesday, Thursday, Tuesday, Thursday, you have no break until April. Okay? We have from April 10th to April 14th. By the time Easter break, spring break rolls around, you're like, oh, thank God. Okay? So it does seem like spring is a really long semester. So that's why I'm like, just try and keep yourself sort of motivated to it, to move along. So one way in helping in that motivation is the blue card that I gave you. So the blue card is like a little half sheet of paper. It's like cardstock, so it's a little firm. So if you would take it and fold it in half, like this. Okay, so on one side, just put your first name. Just try and write it kind of dark if you can. If you have a Sharpie, that's fabulous. I didn't bring any, I forgot. Okay, just write your first name on the front. And then just turn it facing towards me because it just kind of helps. Because then I start looking and going, okay, that's you. Okay, that's you. It does help. If you'll try to remember to bring it and put it out over the next couple of weeks, that would be great. Just improving my memory. I am terrible with names. Terrible. I mean, you would think after 28 years I'd be better. I see students that I had last semester. I'm like I can't remember their names. It's terrible. Yeah, that's fine. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that goes on the front. Just write it kind of big letters, try as dark as you can so that I can maybe see it from afar. That would be wonderful. The other thing, though, I want you to do is on the back. So on the back side, this is what you're going to look at. I want you to just jot down, and it doesn't have to be a big, long explanation. It might be one word, okay? What is your motivator, okay? What is going to be the thing when you're like, I can't do this. I am done. I'm putting, I don't care. I'll just keep working at Walmart. I don't care, okay? What is your motivator? What is your future? Why are you here? What's that goal, right? Everybody kind of has this like, well, optimally, if all things work out, I want to do this, okay? Think of that as being kind of your motivator. When you start thinking like, I don't have enough time, I'm tired, I don't have, I need to work more, I don't have time for school. What is a motivator so that you go, okay, I know that I'm like stressing about this right now. What is it that's going to help push me? And it's on the back of the card. You don't have to give me these cards. You don't have to explain any of this to me. Like I said, it might just be a word or two words. Something that's meaningful to you. Because when you put your name, that motivator is pointing at you. So when you're sitting in class going, look at your motivator, right? What is that? Maybe it's your kid, okay? Maybe it's your dog. I don't know. I have 3 dogs, so I will talk about my dogs.
I got 4.
4. Oh, well, I had. I've had many dogs in my life. Well, I have 2. Just a little bit about me. I have been teaching almost 28 years. I am a biochemist, like that. I have a master's degree, bachelor's and master's degree in biochemistry. And so that is where the whole carbohydrates, proteins, fats, lipids, nucleic acids is really kind of like my jam. I really enjoy it. So I hope that you see this connection to real life for in what we talk about and then in both your majors as well as just your life. I have 2 daughters. One is 33. The other one is 30. Yes, most of you are younger than my children. And I'm going to be a grandma in May, a boy. I'm so excited. Okay, so yes, that's the first grandbaby for us. So I'm very excited about that. So it's a problem because one of them, the pregnant one, she's in Massachusetts, and the other one lives in California. So we're really clearly this very close-knit family. Like, yeah, so I mean, we message just about every day, back and forth and things. So yeah, the pregnant one's like, I'm starting to feel large. And I'm like, girlfriend, oh, you just wait. You wait till the beginning of May when you're like, oh my God, waddling back and forth. Yeah, she's like nowhere there. She's like 20 weeks. So she's so excited now. So it's all finally starting to be real, I guess. All right, so just set your card once you get done your little thing. Okay, so it's the study of matter and the changes. So people think about like chemical reactions, chemical molecules. So matter, what is matter? Matter is anything that has mass and takes up space. See? So like you do remember something from way back in social science or physical science, anything that has mass. And when we think of mass, we usually think of weight. So mass is having this substance, okay? So you know that some things are really light, some things are heavy. So that is that mass aspect. Anything that has mass and takes up space. So solids, liquids, and gases, these are the 3 different states that you can find matter. And water is really the best example with this because you can find water at all of these states, even in the environment. Most things like, so if you think about like iron, okay, in order to melt iron, you have to get it up to like 2,500 degrees. So you have to really heat it. And so becoming a gas, iron gas molecule is almost impossible, okay? But water, as a solid versus a liquid versus a gas, as ice or just liquid water, as steam, how would you describe the particles and how they're arranged? Because that's really the big difference between these states. So how would you describe the particles that make up a solid? Are they close together or far apart? Close together. In fact, they're super close. So what I'm going to do is just draw 12 dots and try to put them in this nice, regular, even arrangement. Okay? Very closely packed, literally touching. So this means that solids have a what shape? Do they change shape or do they keep their shape? Keep their shape. So they have what they call a definite shape. And what about their volume? So the amount of space they take up, does that stay the same or does that change? Stays the same. So they have a definite shape and volume. So if you have like a brick, it's just going to stay that way. So it doesn't end up changing its shape randomly. The volume stays the same. But now how are liquid particles different? They move around. So can they be as tightly packed? No. So this is why, so when you draw 12 dots, just give them a little bit of space. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Okay? I'm going to give them a little bit of space. There's more space between the molecules or the particles, and that is going to allow them to flow. So they can slide around each other. They're not stuck in this rigid arrangement. So what does that mean about their shape? It can change, right? So if you take and you put a cup of water in a tall, thin vase, or if you put it in a bowl, it's going to change its shape. So this is a changing shape or an indefinite shape. But what about its volume? If you have a cup of water and it's in the vase or a cup of water in a bowl, does it change its volume? No, it's still a cup, right? So it's still, but it's going to have a definite volume. So liquids have this ability to flow. What about gases? Very spaced out, right? Gases actually behave like there's nothing else in the room, okay? The totally egocentric particle, right? It's all about them. So gas particles almost never contact each other, and they actually behave very independent of anything else. So if I'm going to take and draw 12, I am going to put them very far apart. Okay? So what would you say about their shape? Is it constant or is it variable? It's variable. They take up the shape of their container, right? So you can take a sample of oxygen gas and compress it into a tank. Still oxygen gas, but you can change that shape and you can change the volume. So the last one is talking about the vibrational activity of the molecules. The challenge of life. My other pen. We'll try the other pen and see if it'll be happy. Yeah. Yeah, the other pen does this. So the vibrational activity. So what I want you to think about is I want you to think about all molecules move. The only way to make molecules not move is to cool them down to absolute zero, right? So that's like the coldest possible temperature, minus 459 degrees Fahrenheit, super, super cold. If they're not that cold, then that means, so these molecules are vibrating, okay? And so solids to liquids to gas, you're changing their temperature. So as you change the temperature, what do you think you're doing to this vibration? As the temperature goes up, what does the vibrational activity of these molecules, what happens to them? It increases, right? So they start to vibrate. And so in fact, going from a solid to a liquid is when this vibration is so great, they have to have more space. So they're like banging against each other, so that pushes them further apart and flips them from a solid to a liquid. Gases, though, compared to solids and liquids, what do you think about their vibrational activity? So the colder you get, the lower the vibration activity. So if we're a gas compared to a solid or a liquid, what do you think the vibrational activity is, higher or lower? It's the exact opposite. So it's going to be the highest. And I think of it as being these molecules are like vibrating. And since they're gases, they have to be able to like vibrate a lot. Okay? Whereas when you get them cooled, they're going to vibrate slower and slower and slower. They can become a liquid. And if you cool them even more, they can become a solid, and they maintain that shape and volume. So gases have the highest vibrational activity. Solids have the lowest. They have to vibrate the lowest so that they can pack in. They wouldn't be able to pack in tightly if they were vibrating any faster. So this one's sort of the medium. So I always think of matter as being almost like a noun. It's like a person, place, or thing kind of thing, right? So if it's a solid, a liquid, or a gas. So when you look around, so the desk, solids, if you've got your coffee, liquids, air in the room, gases. So then the next question becomes, so what's not matter? So what is not matter? And the hint is it can be kinetic or potential. Energy. So energy. So can you think of examples in here of energy? The lights in the room, that's electrical. Writing, that's mechanical. The energy of movement. Okay, so that's moving as well. I'm trying to think like vibration of the vocal cords. It's still kind of a mechanical. If you put your hand on the table, how does it feel? Cool, right? So there is a transfer of heat that occurs from your hand to the table. That's why you recognize it as feeling cool. That's thermal. All right, if you ate breakfast going on in your stomach right now, we've got some chemical energy going on, digestion. They say all energy comes from ultimately, all energy comes from the sun. So that is solar. In chapter 2, we're going to talk about how some chemicals are unstable and they release energy. That is radiation that comes from unstable atoms. So all these different forms, the definition of energy is the ability to do work. So while I said matter is kind of like it's a thing, so it's more like a noun, so it's a solid, a liquid, a gas, energy is like this work. It's an action, right? So it is the lights glowing, the filament, so electricity passes through the filament glows, and that's the light. When you're digesting food, then that's breaking those chemical bonds so that you can liberate the energy from those molecules so that your cells can use that energy to do what the cell needs to do. So that's kinetic. Active energy is energy doing something. So writing, mechanical energy. So what's potential energy? Okay, so it's passive energy. It's another way you've heard it described. So if something's kinetic, it's doing this. Stored energy, okay, you could think of it as being inactive. So in here, do you see an example of potential energy? Okay, because which lights? So do you notice these lights are off, right? So these lights have potential energy. The way that all I'd have to do is flip the switch, that would complete the electrical circuit, cause the filaments to glow, the lights would come on. So they have the ability to create light, but they're not right now. So the lights on would be active, but the lights being off are potential. Maybe you have like a granola bar in your bag for later. What would you call that? It's potential energy because it's not going to be used until you eat it. Okay, so it has to be ingested, it has to be broken down, absorbed, and then you can use the molecules in those nutrients in order to get the energy. So an uneaten granola bar. So if you're sitting really still, that is a potential form of energy. Say, I have a pug mutt. She's like the best example of potential energy. Because she has very much the pug mindset. The only thing that's making her mood is food. Okay? So she like doesn't get out of bed. She sleeps in bed. She has her spot. Nobody bothers her. She snores like an old man. She snores louder than either of us do, for sure. But I get up, get dressed, go in the kitchen. As soon as she hears the bowls hit the counter, in she comes. Okay? And then she's like, you know, big, if you imagine the pug, like she's a mutt, but she still has the big buggy eyes. And she just like eats like it's the best thing in her life. And then she goes to the couch. Okay? Once it's like maybe 10, 11, she wakes up, she's like, all right, I guess I'll go outside. They have a doggy door and a fenced-in yard, so they do whatever they want when I'm not home. But she is, by and large, when I come home, she does come and greet me. She's always happy to see me. Then she goes and gets back on the couch. And she's done until dinner. Like, that's pretty much, huh? Yeah, very, like, she is like, she has mastered potential energy, okay? Because she does as little as possible. The other dogs run around barking, and she's like, no, not necessary. I don't have to run around and act the fool. I'm fine. Okay, so she is potential. All right, so we're going to talk about classifying matter, the different categories of matter between now and Thursday. This is one of your PowerPoints. It's a couple of slides in, and we'll go back and talk about it. But I want to go ahead and give you this list before I let you go. So you will need to learn the names and the symbols of elements 1 through 20 and the 10 I've got on the list. Now, this is on your PowerPoint, so it's like, should be like maybe 8 slides in. So you can go back and look at it too, okay? So in this, by what I mean by 1 through 20, do you notice on the periodic table, there's a number above each of the letter symbols. So like H, there's a 1. HE, there's a 2. So that's what I mean by the number in terms of 1 through 20. So hydrogen is 1. So that's the one in that upper left-hand corner. Then you got to go all the way over to the far right to see HE, which is number 2. So each row, the number increases by 1 as you go across. So 3 is lithium, 4 is beryllium, 5 is boron. Those ones are not necessarily the most familiar. So ones that you look at and you're like, I don't even know how to spell that, okay? So those ones, you may want to start making a list. Most people know C is carbon, right? Okay, all the organic aspects. N is, O is carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen. Those make up 96% of you, okay? But go through 1 through 20 all the way down to Ca, which is calcium. And then I made this alternate list, or an additional list of 10 from chromium, iron, cobalt, copper, zinc, that are located kind of in lower rows, down to mercury. And then I have iodine, because I didn't think it would fit down in the bottom, so I put it over on that upper corner. But that's your 30. So sometimes they're like, well, I don't have a book. How do I know how to spell these? Right? So how do I know where these are? And I wanted to just take a second and show you. So if you go to your e-text is set up so that it's got the 12 chapters. But if you go all the way to the bottom, it goes to, oh, and I'm actually there. So like here's the table of contents here. So preface, background. So there's like chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Keep going down, keep going down. When I get all the way down to 12, I get to what they call back matter. I don't know where that term came from. We used to always call it an appendix, okay? It was always like any kind of special charts and stuff were always at the very end of the book you could flip to look things up. So in there, one thing they've got is the periodic table. Okay, so the periodic table, just like in the PowerPoint, is in here. It's also in chapter 1, but it's a quick way to find it. Like if you were doing some reading and you're like, I don't know where that one is, you could pull that up, the periodic table. I actually have a PDF file version of this that's in your PowerPoints that's colored. I kind of like the colors because it helps you to distinguish between metals and nonmetals. But then here's the second thing that I think you might find important. Here's a list of all the element names and symbols. So you've only got to know 30, but if you want to double check how to spell beryllium, then you can pull it up in here. So it's down in that back matter. It's kind of like the second little tab. So I just wanted to show you those. Some people are really comfortable using e-text. Some like hardly ever use them. You know, whichever if you find it helpful to read and read definitions and such, you'll find it helpful. But there's a list. So it gives you the element name, its symbol, and then what atomic number it is. Okay, so you need to know the 1 through 20, and then you also need to know that list of 10 that's on that PowerPoint slide.